Mirage Green inside of the Hyundai Kona is a really neat color, especially when you pair it with the N-line trim level that we're looking at, because all of the black highlights contrast very nicely. In this video, you're going to learn the basics of what you need to know about the Kona. I'm going to cover off available technology, drivetrain options, what's going on under the hood, first and second row spacing, and a few other basics. But if you want some tech-specific videos like how to use the steering wheel buttons, go through the cluster screen, or the infotainment system, you'll find those walkthroughs down in the description, along with build links to Hyundai Canada and USA as well. Inside the Kona, you've got the option for 17s, 18 or 19-inch wheels, depending on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. This is the N-line, and it's got 19-inch wheels with a very unique style to them. And you know that this one is the N-line because it's got the N-line badge right in the center cap there. You're going to find the Kona available either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and that's going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. In the States, you're pretty much looking front-wheel drive standard, versus in Canada, all-wheel drive is the standard in some options. And one really useful thing is that the Kona features an all-wheel drive lock. And a big benefit of that all-wheel drive lock is it's good for slippery conditions if you're going off-road, gravel roads, and things like that. The Kona got a very noticeable upgrade on the outside. Got an LED light bar that goes all the way through at the front end, LED headlamps there as well. And then just the overall body styling of the Kona is great. I love that kind of wavy texture pattern that you're looking at throughout the doors and then along the hood. Now I did mention this one is the N-line, but you've got a series of different styles for the front end that you're looking at, depending on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. When you look at the N-line Ultimate package in Canada or the limited trim level down in the States, that's going to give you a front-facing camera and side-mounted cameras for a full surround view monitor, which looks beautiful. On top of that, there's also the option for the blind spot view monitor, and that utilizes the side-mounted cameras in order to show you what's going on in your blind spot right inside of the cluster screen. This one unfortunately doesn't have it, but that feature is incredible. I love the way that it looks. Another thing to point out is that the Kona does have a few gas engines available, which I'll show you in a second, but you're also still going to find this thing as an electric. So if you prefer that EV driving instead, the Kona electric is still available. But I haven't seen the 2024 electric yet. So when I put together a walkthrough video on that specific vehicle, you'll find a walkthrough down in the description of this video. Underneath the hood of the Kona, there are two different engine choices that are available. Maybe three, depending on whether or not Hyundai decides to bring back the Kona N for the 2024 model. But as of right now, it's either the 2-liter naturally aspirated, so the non-turbocharged engine, or the 1.6-liter turbocharged engine. And power-wise, they're pretty different from one another. The 2-liter turbo has 147 horsepower and 132 pound-feet of torque, which is okay. But the 1.6-liter has 190 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. It's like a little bit of a difference between the two of them. If power is your thing, you're definitely going to want to look at the 1.6-liter turbocharged engine instead of the 2-liter. But the 1.6 turbo is only going to be available in the N-line in the limited trims. So in those lower trims, you are looking at just the regular 2-liter instead. But honestly, if you are just looking for a car to get you from A to B and that's all you really care about, the 2-liter is still a pretty respectable engine. I just love the peppiness of the 1.6. Underneath the hood here is straightforward. So you've got easy access in order to top up your wiper fluid, change your oil, and then there's also easy access to the battery. And you just want to make sure you're maintaining your vehicle to get the best possible life at every ride and maintain the manufacturer's warranty, which in the Hyundai world is pretty respectable. Your basic warranty is 5-year, whether you're in Canada or the States and it's 100,000 kilometers or 60,000 miles. The powertrain in Canada is a 5-year 100,000. In the States, it's a 10-year 100,000 mile, which is pretty wild. But again, it's all dependent on taking care of your vehicle, because if you skip maintenance and there's an issue and it's tied back to the issue that you didn't maintain, it could potentially void the warranty for that specific issue. So that's why it's just important, regular oil changes, regularly scheduled maintenance to protect your ride. Filling up fuel inside of the Kona is straightforward and it's along the driver's side. One nice thing, it's a locked cover. So in order to be able to unlock it, just in the first row, there's a little release. And that just pops it open. Now it doesn't matter if you're in the 2-liter or the 1.6-liter turbo. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation is just regular 87 gas. So just 87 octane is all you need to use inside of this thing. You could use a higher octane if you wanted to. It's just not necessary in this ride. The rear end styling, when you look at the Kona N-Line, is a little bit more aggressive than the other trim levels because it's got that unique dual spoiler along the very top. We've got a nice LED light bar for the brakes along the back and along the side. And then technology-wise back here, this does have the option for the reverse sensing system when you get into the N-Line Ultimate or the limited trims. Otherwise, there's no reverse sensing, but one cool thing is while you're driving, it does also have a great safety setting where it can let you know if somebody's entered the blind spot at the rear end of the vehicle. So it's like a cross-traffic alert kind of a system, which is pretty neat. You are gonna find a rear wiper inside of the Kona. There's the new Kona lettering along the back, and then there's a nice glossy highlight that goes throughout the rear bumper. You are dual tip exhaust inside of this thing, and the Kona, unfortunately, is not rated for towing. So if you are looking at towing, you're gonna have to look at one of the other vehicles in the Hyundai lineup if you wanted to pull something. But like I said, the Kona, not rated for towing whatsoever, regardless of the engine that you're in. The liftgate inside of this thing, for the most part, is just going to be a manual. But again, you get into that higher packaged option, you do have the option for the smart key. And the smart key is amazing because as long as you've got the key fob on you, you can walk up to the back end, wait a few seconds, and it's automatically gonna open up for you as well. But doing it yourself, not hard, and it's not a bad thing at the same time. If you trace just underneath the N in Kona, there's a button there you're just gonna pull, and up it goes. So easy enough to do it yourself. And one thing you might be able to see is that this thing does have a little cargo protector. So you could easily take it off if you want to. Left side, right side, and lift, and out it goes. There's not a ton of stuff back here. Nothing off to the right, off to the left, there's just a little light along the very back. And then this is just the regular carpeted liner you're going to find inside of the Kona. You do have the option of doing something aftermarket if you wanted a cargo protector, and then you can fully slide this thing out if you want to. Now, one thing you're not going to find inside of this thing is a spare tire, so it's just the tire mobility kit. And one of the nice things about being a Hyundai owner, though, is that you do have access to Hyundai roadside assistance. And that's good for things like tire changing, winching services, battery jumping, and then if you need fuel delivery, things like that. One thing I like about this is that you can slide it in on multiple levels. So if you need a tiny little bit of extra cargo space, you can drop it down for a few extra inches of space, and those extra inches can matter. Then folding down the second row seats can be done either from the trunk area or from the first, or for the second row, I should say. So right along the top, there's a button there. You're just gonna push and drop down for a fairly flat fold. Not completely flat, especially when you have the tray lower, but you could slide that tray back out. And then when you have it installed that way, it is a fairly flat fold. Now, if you need to fold down the second row seats of this thing and you're not in the cargo area or you have no need to go into the cargo area of the vehicle, right along the second row door there, there's the release along the very top. So you're just gonna grab and drop the seat down. Now, the cargo measurements that you're looking at, they're going from right where the liftgate would close to just in behind the armrest between the first row seats, between that driver-passenger side. So if the driver's seat or passenger seat is forwards, backwards a little bit, you're gonna gain or lose a couple extra inches, just depending on how you have this thing set up. And then reinstalling the shade is straightforward. So just along the top there, just gonna install in, up along the top, finish it off on the other side, and you're set to go. Take a peek at the size of the Kona. It's pretty solid. There are roof rack rails there. You could look at some crossbars if you needed them. It's also got a shark fin antenna on top of that. The side view mirrors here do feature turn signals. They've got the blind monitor there as well, so if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, that's gonna highlight and let you know. And then when you get into the higher trim, it's also gonna have a side mounted camera there, and that's gonna be for the blind view monitor, so you can see what's going on right inside of the cluster screen, which is amazing. And then this thing also has engine access, so as long as you've got the fob on you, you can push there to lock the door, slide your hand in order to unlock. That's nice. That's nice. The door, nice and simple. You've just got your handle, side view mirror controls, window controls, and then a little bit of storage. On the inside there, you can adjust the brightness of the cluster screen, traction control on or off, and then hill descent control as well. There's an electronic parking brake, and then your hood release. Now, these are the factory liners that you're gonna find for the Kona. But I mean, I like that. Kona N-Line, that looks good. And it's just way easier to clean these things off. Because this is the N-Line, you've got a nice checkered flag scuff plate. And for the most part, inside of the Kona lineup, the seats are going to be a manual adjust. So you've got your bar there to slide the seat forwards, backwards. You can lift the seat up or drop it down. And then there's also the option of adjusting the backrest there as well. But I gotta say, the N line with all of those red highlights, that looks really nice. But, oh, that's good. I like the new setup. New badge in the middle there looks different. You're going to be push button start inside of this thing. Now, this is unique, but I'll touch on that in just a minute. But that's nice. That's nice. It's a nice little setup there, and like even the style along the dash there looks great along the passenger side. I like that red highlight that follows all the way through. It just goes so nicely with the red highlights in the N line. And that's going to be specific for the Kona N line. So those red highlights aren't going to be available in the lower trims of the vehicle. But looking at seat comfort. So I've got the driver's seat set up for myself the way that I would traditionally drive. But with the seat as far down as it's going to go, I've got, what, 4.5-ish inches of headspace. So if you're taller, chances are good that you're going to be able to fit inside of this thing. But the seat is comfortable. And there are a few different style seats that are available as well. So this is a nice mix of suede and then a leatherette, so it's a faux leather. You're gonna have cloth seats in the lower trim levels of the vehicle. But the seat comfort is definitely there. And the headrest is just a two-way adjustable, I guess, just up and down. So you can't go backwards, forwards with it whatsoever, but still, it's pretty nice. Now, basics here, I like that. Display, so dual 12.3-inch display setup, so fully digital cluster screen, and then you've got the 12.3-inch infotainment system as well. But the steering wheel inside of this thing is great. You might have the option for a heated steering wheel, just depending on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. So this one, because I'm in the N line, I'm in Canada, heated steering wheel is pretty much standard across the board, and it's heated pretty much everywhere. You've got basics for your smart cruise control system, the lane center assist or the lane follow assist, so it keeps you perfectly balanced in your lane. This thing has paddle shifters, which are great. So if you wanted to get a little bit of boost to speed, you could, and then change out your gears as necessary. But if you've never used paddle shifters before, it is an amazing system. But I have put together a walkthrough on the S650 Mustang showing you how paddle shifters works. It works the exact same way across every vehicle though. So if you want to know how the paddle shifters work, or even with the regular shifter with the manual mode, you can find that walkthrough down in the description of this video. But if you want a full walkthrough too, like you actually want to know how to use the adaptive cruise system, navigate through the cluster screen, use the buttons, the infotainment, you'll find that down in the description. But this is neat. Now there's one thing that's different about the N line that you're not going to find in the lower trims, and that's this little shifter. So in the other trims of the vehicle, you're going to have like a traditional handheld shifter instead. But this one has this. It is, honestly, it's funky the first time you use it, but once you get the hang of it, it's incredibly intuitive. So you just go drive that way, drop down to neutral, drop down further to go into reverse. It's really straightforward and neat, but there's a lot of other tech you're going to find as an option. So I did mention the blind view monitor. So in the higher trim, when you go left versus right inside of the cluster screen, it's going to show you what's going on inside of your blind spot. And that's the same thing when you're in reverse. So when you're in that higher package, not only will you have the backup camera, you're going to have the full surround monitor. So that full 360 camera, which looks, again, amazing. It's great. But there are technically two different infotainment setups. So inside of pretty much all of the lower trim levels, you're looking at this setup. So it doesn't have factory navigation, but it does have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. When you get into the setup for the N-Line Ultimate or the limited trim level, that one's going to have factory navigation. It still has Android Auto Apple CarPlay support, but inside of the one with navigation, it's going to be a USB connection instead. So you don't have the option of going wireless inside of the screen with factory navigation. You'd have to literally plug yourself in order to be able to, well, actually, I guess technically there for your data connection, and then just a regular USB charge port there as well. But the screen, there's a lot to it, but it's basic at the same time. You've got your volume rocker, tuning rocker, you've got stations, so you've got AM, FM, Sirius XM inside of this screen. You can hook your phone up over Bluetooth, you can stream audio this way, and I mean the audio is actually pretty good inside of this thing. I like it. And there are two different speaker setups that you're going to find inside of the Kona. So it's either going to be a 6-speaker setup in the lower trims, and then an 8-speaker Bose sound system when you get into the Kona N-Line Ultimate package or the limited trim level. So there are different speaker choices available, but I mean, the base speaker system is still pretty good at the same time. And one cool thing, so this one doesn't have the factory nav, but if you were hooked up over wirelessly through Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, you can hit the map button and then it's just going to launch you right into your maps inside of your phone. It's really neat, and it's full screen for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It looks great, but you've got basics there for climate control. You've got a few USB power points, and it's only USB-C. So if you have a USB stick with MP3s on it, that's the old Type A, you need to get a little dongle adapter, unfortunately. There's also a little 12-volt power point. There's a wireless charge pad there as well. Super useful. It's not standard across every trim level, but it is available there. And that's the same thing with a few other things. So I mentioned the heated steering wheel is going to be available in some trims. There's also heated, and then there would be the option for ventilated first row seats for the driver and for the passenger side. Again, that's strictly going to be available in that highest trim level instead. There's also a series of selectable drive modes and an all-wheel drive lock. So if you're going off-road, if you wanted a little bit more traction, you could lock yourself out to all-wheel drive instead. And then there are 3 individual drive modes, so normal, sport, and snow. I prefer the sport mode, and I like the little setup in the cluster when you do that. But you can also customize the look of this instead. So if we go into our setup, cluster, theme selection, so you can either link it to drive mode, and then you can have it either as a classic or simple. That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I like that. That's good. Nice. And then from there, there's nothing else. So you've got your basic cup holders there. And actually, the cup holders are pretty neat inside of this one. So they're adjustable this way. The armrest in this thing is pretty interesting because it's not completely closed off. At first I was like, why is this locked? It's just that this doesn't just randomly move on you, but you can unlock it there. And then there's a removable tray. And then you've got a decent amount of storage space down there as well. But it's not a completely sealed off storage compartment either. So you're going to have a little bit of junk overflowing, but still not bad. The highlight there is good. The visibility is good along the driver passenger side. Glove box inside of this thing is non-lockable. And then up overhead, for the most part, you're going to have just a manual dimming rear view mirror. In the highest trim, you will have an automatic dimming mirror instead, so one of those auto dim mirrors. You've got your SOS mode, tow mode, and then this thing also does have a sunroof. So single button press is going to open the shade, and then it creates a little vent. And then when you push it away again, that's going to open it up. That's nice. You got a little bug guard there, right? And then you can just button press once in order to close it. I mean, that's neat. And you can also pause it part way. So if you wanted to open it up a bit, you could push in order to stop. If you just wanted to have the roof, the sunshade open and not the roof itself. It's pretty nice. Got basic controls for your door lights. The visor has a vanity mirror built right in, and then typical Hyundai styling. The light is up overhead there. And this thing extends out, blocking all of the sun that might be hitting your face. There's also a little assist handle on the driver's side, passenger side, for the first and for the second row. But so the seat comfort is definitely there. And I've got the seat set up the way that I would traditionally drive. So with the seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, inside of the second row, I've got a good amount of knee space, great amount of foot space. And up overhead, what's that? 2.5-ish inches of headspace, which, I mean, still is pretty respectable. It's good. Seat in the second row is still pretty comfy at the same time. Not bad. Feature-wise, there are a few things back here. So nothing along the door there. You're gonna have a little bottle holder. Not gonna find pockets behind the driver's side, but there is one along the passenger side there. Down low, you've got 2 USB Type-C power points, and then a tiny little storage tray there as well. And then this just goes to show, like, I like the floor liners from the factory on this thing. Rubberized trays, it just makes cleaning these things out so much easier than just regular carpeted mats instead. Looks good. The seats, same suede leatherette look that we've got in the front seats. A few cup holders that are built right in. And you've also got your anchor points down low as well. So if you've got child seats, you are covered off there. But other than that, there's a little handle, there's a light, and then there's a handle and a clothing hook on the driver's side. So passenger side doesn't have that hook. It's strictly going to be on the driver's side. But still, pretty useful that it is there as well. But outside of that, there's not really much else to the second row of the Kona. It's simple, it's basic. It is fairly spacious at the same time back here. For people that are a little bit smaller, it's going to be easier for the middle seat. For taller people like myself, that is going to be tight. So like 3 full-size versions of me, you're probably not going to get inside of the second row of the Kona. But if you had 3 smaller adults, if you've got kids, whatever the case may be, you shouldn't have any issue fitting 3 kids inside of the second row of this thing. But this one has the 1.6 liter turbo. So let's take it out for a spin and have a little bit of fun. All right, empty road. That's not bad at all. All right, fair enough. I guess the big one here, I'm gonna do a little 0 to 60 test after I turn. Actually, no, I won't do the 0 to 60 test here because this is only 50 road. Actually, let's go 0 to 50 and see how it does. That's 50 kilometers an hour, not 50 miles. All right, so we're 0 and... That's not bad. Not bad at all. That's actually pretty fun. It's really smooth though, and this thing handles really, really nicely. That's great. I had the chance to take the Kona N on a track last year, and on a track, it handles incredibly well. Like the power inside of it, that's the 2 liter turbocharged engine. This is the 1.6. But even still, the 1.6 liter is still a boatload of fun. And 3, 2, 1. All right, 0 to 80 in a few seconds. That was pretty good. I'll give you that, Kona. I will give you that. Now, I'm obviously not going to push the car that often, but to know that it's got the power just in case you need it, that's kind of useful to know. Which trim level do you decide to go for? And that's really going to depend on you and what you find important inside of a vehicle. Do you care about some of the bells and whistles? Like, do you like the smart cruise control system? Do you like the heated seats, the heated steering wheel, things like that? You're going to want to go for one of the higher trims. But in the N line specifically, that's when you're looking at the 1.6 liter turbo, and you'll also find it in the limited trim. So the 1.6 liter turbo is a night and day difference. It's got almost 50% more power in comparison. Well, let's call it 40. 40-ish% power, 30% power, somewhere in that ballpark there. But it's way more powerful in comparison to the regular 2 liter. But if you don't care about the extra power, you're just looking for something to get you from A to B, the regular 2 liter engine is still good. And then would you go for the N-Line or the N-Line Ultimate versus the Limited? That's also going to depend on if you want all of those extra features. Do you care about the Bose sound system? Do you want that surround view monitor, that 360 camera? That technology is there. It's not standard inside of the vehicle though, which is nice because you're not paying for features or technology that you don't necessarily care about. And that was a look at the 2024 Hyundai Kona in the Mirage Green. You can find a build link for this specific Hyundai down in the description with links off to Hyundai Canada and USA, along with all the build details and the tech walkthrough videos. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone if you think they might find it helpful. And until I see you next time, take care. Inside the Kona, you've got the option for 17, bug.